Joining us today is British journalist Sami Hamdi, who thankfully is joining us freed from American detention. Sami, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. So for people who don't know, you became kind of a cause célèbre when it comes to the question of free speech and criticism of Israel here in the United States when you were when you became a kind of high-profile ICE detainee for about 2 weeks. Can you talk just briefly for people who don't know the story about what you were doing here in the U.S. And how you wound up in American custody?
Thank you very much, Ryan. So I had a B1, B2 visa that was valid for 10 years. It was due to expire in 2028. And I had been visiting America on numerous occasions over the past 3 years, in which talking about the Middle East politics, whether it's talking about Syria, whether it's talking about the Gulf, and more recently about what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Gaza, this genocide that is taking place. On my trips to America, I spoke at universities such as Berkeley, Stanford, CUNY, and these others, and welcomed in America, and never really had any issues going in and out of America. And then 2 weeks prior to my detention, a right-wing individual called Dinesh D'Souza put up a video of a lecture that I gave in Kuala Lumpur, where I expressed quite passionately that to the audience that they should keep talking on social media. It's making a difference. Americans have good hearts. When they're seeing the truth, their hearts are flipping. When they're seeing the realities of what's taking place in Palestine, when they're seeing the images of Sidra's legs blown off and her body hanging from the wall from the force of the blast, when they're seeing Hind Rajab and hearing the audio note where she's surrounded by her corpses of her family in the car, being shot at by 320 American bullets supplied to the Israelis, and the Israelis bomb the ambulance sent to save her, Americans are moved by it. Their hearts are changing as a result of it. When they see the video of Nahban, may Allah have mercy on his soul, holding his granddaughter, calling her the soul of my soul, I was arguing in Kuala Lumpur that we should have faith in humanity, and that when you speak through social media and provide the truth, it's dispelling the propaganda of those supporting the genocide and the like. Dinesh D'Souza took this clip in which I was arguing that there are hearts in corners we didn't think possible that could flip, like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, etc. He took this clip and he tweeted, "Muslim Brotherhood operative celebrates the role of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson in spreading Islam in America." And Grok would respond and say, "This is absolute nonsense. Nothing in the video says anything like it."
Grok to the rescue, finally. No?
Exactly. But an individual called Ted Cruz, senator of Texas, decides to retweet it, and I land on the attention of a lady called Laura Loomer, who tweets on the Monday, as part of this Israeli lobby, tweets on the Monday and says, "There is somebody from the UK who is touring the US criticizing the Israelis. I'm paraphrasing here. We need to get rid of his visa." I didn't take it seriously in the sense that this is America, there's land of law. Laura Loomer is not the arbiter of free speech in the land of the free and home of the brave, as the America calls itself. On the Wednesday, she tweeted, "I'm in Congress and I have good news coming in 2 days about a certain so-called operative touring the UK at this touring the US at this moment." And I knew she's talking about me. On the Saturday, I gave a lecture in Sacramento at a CARE banquet, the Council of American Islamic Relations, in which I argued that America needs to be saved from the Israel First lobby. I argued in that speech that it is unfathomable that an American can freeze on Magnificent Mile in Chicago and cannot access any funds to save him from homelessness, while Congress gives $14 billion to the Israelis first. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that an American goes bankrupt because they can't afford medical bills, because $8 billion gets given by Congress to the Israelis to give them free healthcare, and then commit genocide on top to slaughter the Palestinians. My argument was that this is not just about America and Israel as one. Save America from a lobby that demands that America suffers for the sake of genocide taking place in Palestine. The following morning, I'm going through San Francisco airport. I was wearing a Malaysian batik, which is a noble dress from Malaysia that Americans mistook for a disco shirt. I don't know why, but in any case, I go through the check-in, I go through security, I look up D38, the gate to go to Tampa to give another lecture. A gentleman approaches me and says, "Excuse me, are you Sami Hamdi?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Sir, I'm here to inform you that your visa has been revoked, and it was revoked 2 days ago." I said to him, "Nobody told me my visa was even under review. What do you mean it's been revoked?" He said, "Sir, here is the memo from the State Department." I read it. It doesn't state any reason. It just says section this, article this, we have the right to revoke it. I said, "Did they give you a reason?" He said, "Sir, they just told me to wait for you here and to pick you up." I said, "Okay, I was supposed to go to London on 2nd of November, 6 flights a day from San Francisco. I'll just book a flight now and just go to the gate for London. That's not how this works, he said to me. Then 6 agents appeared out of nowhere. They escorted me out of San Francisco airport. A black car with tinted windows was waiting for me. I asked to call a lawyer. They refused. And then when I told them there's no way I'm getting in the car, I'm a British citizen, I'm not some random guy you find on the street. One of them relented, said, okay, you got 1 minute. I called a lawyer who's in civil liberties. And then the lady behind me, when I asked to call my family, one of the agents pushes me against the car. That's enough. You're under arrest now. Cuffs me. And they take me on a 6-hour ordeal in the back of a van to the middle of nowhere, someplace, McFarland. And they put me in a facility. And I stayed there 18 days. And thanks to 2 federal judges who indicated that there were serious breaches of freedom of speech and therefore my case should be expedited, the DHS lawyer in private, I know what they were saying publicly, but certainly in private, they sort of said, listen, can we just clear this up, go home and let the storm pass and we'll clear the record in that regard. But it was quite the experience in that regard. But the final thing I'll say here is, before I hand back over, is I know a lot of people focused on what happened to me, but I think it should be placed in the broader context, Ryan, in the sense that I think that the extreme Israeli lobby, bear in mind, I was not the first person they targeted. They actually went after American citizens first to curtail the freedom of speech in terms of what they can say about Israel. You'll remember, Ryan, they went after American students who were with the American Muslims for Palestine. They went after them in Michigan, and the judge ruled that the case should be dismissed. Then they went after American citizens, telling them
we had one of those American citizens on this program,
Exactly.
actually. That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. And they went in Nevada. The judge said, this is absolute nonsense. We have freedom of speech in this country. Then the extreme Israeli lobby said, okay, we're struggling to go after American citizens. Let's go after naturalized citizens. So they targeted Mehdi Hassan and some of these others, and they failed. Then they said, okay, let's go after green card holders. We need to restrict the rights of ordinary Americans to prevent them from accessing truth. They went after Mahmoud Khalil. They found that it's much more difficult. The judges ruled he shouldn't be deported. His case is still in limbo, but he hasn't been deported yet. Then they said, let's go after student visas. They went after Rumaysa Osturk, Mohsen Mahdoui, and other students. Let's scare students like Liqa Kurdiya from preventing them from speaking out. And they failed. The judges ruled they should be released. Then they thought, this is really bad. The Constitution is against us. We're unable to restrict American freedoms. We're unable to push our way and prevent this truth from penetrating the filters that we put on the flow of information in America. Then they thought, there's a random UK guy from London touring the United States. Let's go after a B1, B2 visa and we'll take that as a victory instead. And thankfully they failed. In the end, I was able to go home free, 18 days in ICE, which was a bit rough, to be honest, but thankfully I'm home, and I consider it a win.
Well, let's take a look at the video Laura Loomer posted, and I think this was 2023, but also Homeland Security posted this video. We'll play it in full here so that people can see what's in question.
Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would actually retake land back from the Israelis. Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would be able to hold those territories for more than 72 hours.
We are pitying a people who brought a huge victory since 1948. Don't pity them. They don't want your pity. Celebrate the victory. Allah has shown the world that no normalization can erase the Palestinian cause. When everybody thought it was finished, it's roaring. How many of you feel it in your hearts? When you got the news that it happened, how many of you felt the euphoria? Allahu Akbar. How many of you felt it? Why did you feel it? Because the despair vanished. You said this ummah is alive.
Okay, so Sami, obviously, speech questions, I just want to put aside for a second. A question that a lot of people might have is, what was the huge victory that people should be celebrating and then feeling euphoria about on October 7th or after October 7th?
Sure. I think anybody who watches the full lecture will see that the build up to it makes it abundantly clear. The sense that normalization was taking place over the heads of the Palestinians. People were warning that you have to engage the Palestinians in any peace talks. And now it's abundantly clear after everything that has happened that the Palestinians are relevant and that they must be included in peace talks. Celebrate the victory that people are talking about the Palestinians again, and that people are no longer steamrolling them in any talks and discussions about their particular future, which is why this video was inadmissible in court, because it's been stitched out of the wider context, and even the Department of Homeland Security found that it could not be submitted. And the irony is that 1 week later, BBC would stitch a video of one of Donald Trump's speeches, and a BBC director would end up resigning as well. I think anybody who watches the full lecture sees abundantly clear what I was talking about. And I don't think something from memory that is Islamophobic and targets all Muslim representatives and anybody who talks as a Muslim. I don't think that any court would take anything they say seriously, which is why not even many of the mainstream media managed to pick it up anyway. And I do want to emphasize this particular point, that nothing of what was being said publicly ever made it into a charge sheet or was even mentioned privately. In fact, on the Wednesday, so 11 days after I was in, the lawyer for the Department of Homeland Security went to the federal court and said, you have no jurisdiction to assess the right of freedom of speech for Sami Hamdi because he's a foreign alien. The judge ruled that not only do they have jurisdiction, but in the words of the judge, we believe there are serious signs that his freedom of speech has been infringed. The following day, the Department of Homeland Security appointed a specific lawyer for my case to call, email, and text my lawyers and say to them, listen, can we just make this go away? We'll just, clear the record. We will pull a few strings. We'll get you home, and we can just forget that all of this took place. And this is the point that I'm emphasizing here, in that this had nothing to do with anything that I said. Everything that I've said, there's nothing wrong. Even in that clip itself, it was not admissible in court. The problem was, how do you silence Americans from talking about what Israel is doing in Palestine? How do you create a climate of fear where even somebody who comes from the UK, a journalist, is frightened to talk about Palestine? How do we make Americans stop spreading on TikTok what's actually happening in Palestine? Something that Hillary Clinton yesterday complained about when she's talking at the Zionist Forum, something that Anthony Blinken and Mitt Romney complained about when they said we need to ban TikTok, and then the 50 billion purchase of TikTok. For what? And this is the point.
Actually, Sami, let me pause you on that real quick, because we have that clip, and I think it's really telling. Let's roll F1 for people.
That our students, smart, well-educated young people from our own country, from around the world, where were they getting their information? They were getting their information from social media, particularly TikTok. That is where they were learning about what happened on October 7th, what happened in the days, weeks, and months to follow. That's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for democracy, whether it's Israel or the United States, and it's a serious problem for our young people. And it was frankly shocking to me how little the students we were encountering, not only in this class we teach, which is a very large class, international relations, about crisis decision making, but students more generally. And that's why I mentioned the social media piece of it, because when you would try to talk to them to engage in some kind of reasonable discussion, it was very difficult because they did not know history. They had very little context. And what they were being told on social media was not just one-sided, it was pure propaganda. And so when you think about how to tell Israel's story, and it's important, it's not just looking internally, it's looking externally, and particularly looking at young people, because, it's not just the usual suspects. It is a lot of young Jewish Americans who don't know the history and don't understand. I was talking to Condi Rice, and, she said in an interview that I did after the 20-point plan came out, she and I were on CBS, and she said, when people were chanting from the river to the sea, she would ask the students, what river, what sea? They didn't know. I had the same experience. A lot of the challenge is with younger people. More than 50% of young people in America get their news from social media. So just pause on that for a second. They are seeing short form videos, some of them totally made up, some of them not at all representing what they claim to be showing, and that's where they get their information.
And so that's at an event put on by Israel's largest newspaper, Israel Hayom, which is funded by Miriam Adelson. So that just to underscore your point about the attempt to control the media. Go ahead.
But Ryan, I want to ask the viewer to listen to what she's saying. She's not just saying they will listen to TikTok. She's saying they weren't listening to us. We are the gatekeepers of information. How dare Americans go somewhere else? How dare Americans exercise their freedoms to listen to the likes of Ryan or Crystal or Sarah or the Palestinians or Mu'taz Azaiza? How dare Americans actually believe that the Constitution entitles them to go to listen to information from sources other than that which we feed them? How dare they go to breaking points instead of CBS, where we've appointed Barry Weiss in order to filter the information that goes to Americans? How dare they go and listen to Mehdi Hassan and Zeteo instead of going to listen to all of these other different outlets that we set up specifically to make sure that the Palestinian voice is never heard? And what Hillary Clinton is saying, as others have said, as one of Obama's former speechwriters has been saying consistently, is that we need to tell the Americans how to interpret history. The lesson from the Holocaust is not that we should support the oppressed, it's that, and then she goes on 1, 2, 3, 4. The point that I'm saying here is, this is not something about Sami Hamdi. It's not about the video that you played. It's not about anything to do with me whatsoever. I got caught in the crosswind. This is about, should Americans be allowed to see the truth of what's happening in the world, or should they only have the right to listen to Hillary Clinton and listen to that which Israel deems to be legitimate information that should go through? And bear in mind, when they talk about TikTok, they're also talking about breaking points. They're also talking about Zeteo. They're also talking about the new media that is emerging, that is no longer beholden to these filters that used to be put on the American people. And I'll finish on this point, Ryan. I went to every state in the US except New Hampshire. And I would go to different places, whether it's Fort Worth and Dallas and these other places. I cannot stress that even the American who was pro-Israel and might be hostile to the information coming out of Gaza in terms of denying the genocide, denying the slaughter, denying the pictures, whenever they saw those graphic images, you saw Obama's former speechwriter saying, it's like I'm talking through a carnage, of dead children when I'm speaking to them. The reality is that she mentions it, Hillary Clinton. You find even ordinary Jews and these others, American citizens, waking up to what's happening. And the tragedy of what's unfolding in America is this. It's that you're no longer talking about America first. And I don't mean MAGA. I mean about the interest of the American citizens. The whole politics at this moment seems to be geared towards, how do you control the flow of information to the ordinary American people for the sake of a foreign government? And I was not detained because I criticized the Americans, albeit I've said in the past they shouldn't be supporting the genocide that's taking place. Laura Loomer came after me, not because I criticized Washington, but because I criticized Israel. Ted Cruz came after me, not because I criticized America, but because I criticized Israel. This is not the America that I think American citizens want to live in or believe in. And that's what Hillary Clinton is talking about. How do we silence these voices before the Americans wake up? Because if the Americans wake up, we get a Mamdani phenomenon in New York. If the Americans wake up, we get a situation in New York where when Democrat and Republican establishment ally behind Cuomo against Mamdani, the people support Mamdani, Mamdani wins. The fight in America has nothing to do with Sami or the like. It has to do with Israel first versus America first. And again, I don't mean MAGA America first. I mean the interest of American citizens. At this moment, it looks like it's not clear who's going to win in that regard. I got caught in the crosswind, but thankfully I came out okay. But I do hope that anybody listening to this can see the reality of what Hillary Clinton is saying. She is saying to you, oh American, that you have no right to exercise freedom in where you get your information from. Listen to us and we'll tell you. It's very Orwellian, very 1984, very the sense of, the newspeak and all these others. And that's where I think the greatest threat to America is not the Muslims. There's not anybody that's being targeted by this sudden upsurge in media that Tucker Carlson, although I find it very weird that we're quoting him left, right, center these days, but it is what it is, given the changes that are taking place. It does feel like the greatest enemy to America today is the one attacking American freedoms, and that attack seems to be coming from Tel Aviv.
And I did want to press on one thing you said, because I think it really underscores how important your case actually is, because it reveals how thoroughly the American people are being lied to. So I want to press on this. You said, so you saw the clip that Laura Loomer circulated. Along with that clip, she and other people said, this is a terrorist supporter. This is a Muslim Brotherhood supporter. This is somebody like training people in like digital like terrorism or something like that. There were all these words that they used to like make speech sound very scary. But what you're saying is that when it came behind bars, our government, who was sharing these Laura Loomer ideas and accusations, our government, who's telling the American people that they have detained a very scary person who is doing terrible things when it comes to criticism of Israel, that they didn't even attempt to make those allegations behind bars and behind the scenes. Is that right?
Not only that, Ryan, not only did they make those allegations behind the scenes, not only did they not even allude to it or suggest it or even present it in any way whatsoever, the sense that my lawyers got, or indeed that we got, when the DHS lawyer came to talk to my lawyers, the sense was that somebody had walked into the State Department or the DHS and sort of said, guys, what idiot listened to Laura Loomer? Like, what on earth happened here? Why are media coming after us with all of this attention? Who is this guy? And who even revoked his visa? And why did you guys listen to Laura Loomer in doing so? And the lawyer was appointed to clean up the mess very quickly. The sense that we got was the government was almost saying, please allow us to save face. We'll let you go home. Return, let the storm pass, apply for a visa again, etc., whatnot. But let's just make this very easy. We can get you home within 48 hours. Because bear in mind, some inmates, when they agree to go home, they still keep them there 3 months. And they still keep there 2 months. I was expedited within 48 hours because of the urgency with which the Department of Homeland Security felt they needed to close this particular case. And this is the point that I'm making. Whatever they're telling you online or whatever the battle is taking place on social media is not the reality of what's unfolding before you. The reality is that there is a PR battle. But privately, the government is very much aware that there is this schism that's taking place. And it's true, even within the State Department. Whatever Marco Rubio says, whatever Tricia, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname
McLaughlin.
is, whatever she's saying, there are people in the State Department and there are people in the federal courts. There are people within the government who are not happy with the way Israel First is taking over US policy. There is resistance in these particular areas, even around Donald Trump. And this is not a defense of Donald Trump at all. Like, there's many stuff that, to be honest, we can say all day and criticize his policies. But even around him, there is this battle between Israel First and America First, which is why you're seeing this clash that's manifested online between Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Dave Smith, and these others, and the Ted Cruzes and the Dinesh D'Souza's and Laura Loomer. It shows that the perception is not of a unified government that's agreed on these things. There is a battle for America that is taking place. I'm not saying one side represents America. I'm saying there is a battle for the heart of America and the preservation of the rights enshrined by the constitutions. The attack is coming from Tel Aviv. I pray that the Americans wake up quick enough before they wake up one day and find that Tel Aviv has not only constrained their freedoms, but even managed to amend their own constitution.
Okay, well, Sami, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.